Right, let's crack on then. So good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope you're all having a good week so far, and maybe even glad to have a pint inside of a pub, which is certainly a novel idea. Thank you for joining our digital surgery webinar. The digital surgery is a platform and a sort of a knowledge hub set up with the aim of sharing some unique insights from thought leaders and experts like Chris here. Our mission sort of is to just teach and provide people in the marketing industry with practical knowledge and expertise that you can kind of start doing straight away. So I'm Matt, and I'm the digital director at Celesti. And for today's webinar, we are joined by Chris Pont. Morning, Chris.
Morning.
If you have any questions sort of during the talk, please pop them in the Q&A tab, and obviously we'll cover these off at the end. But I'll pass things over to Chris. Hopefully you can share your screen, Chris.
Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Well, that is very rude of me. I'll sort that out immediately, sir. There we go. Okay. You should hopefully be able.
There we go.
My friend.
That looks much better. All right.
So, well, I'll leave you in the capable hands of Chris, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that work?
Perfect.
Excellent. Okay, brilliant. So hi, everyone. My name's Chris Pont. I'm CEO here at IJYI. I'm here to talk to you about drawing insight from your data. So very briefly, if I can change slides, there we go. Very briefly, just a bit about IJYI. We're a software delivery, data and BI consultancy, and we've been around since about 2014. My background is a consultant for blue chip organizations, many of which are sort of financial services such as Willis and Aviva, as well as places like Sega and BT. We've been working with people such as Suffolk County Council, Hackney County Council, Ipswich Building Society, Siemens, the Rail Delivery Group, Zurich Insurance and Bosch. And we've been doing some interesting work around data with some of those clients, particularly Suffolk County Council. So last year, as the pandemic was kicking off, obviously, like many local authorities, they were getting a lot of data, particularly around coronavirus, around cases, around patient levels, etc. And we were asked to help them to help pull in that data, help automate as much of that as possible, because lots of local authorities were having to shepherd around Excel spreadsheets, manually pasting rows and columns. And as we found from the government last year, Excel is not a database. It's not built for that sort of thing. And often you can lose records. So we've helped them to automate that into something called the Corona Watch dashboard. And that allows the public to see case levels across the county, track metrics around where there's hotspots and where case levels are. So I'm going to talk to you today about how we've used Power BI both within IJYI to help us access up-to-the-date data, manage the organization, look at how it's performing, as well as what we do for our clients. So we, like many businesses, started tracking metrics to inform the board about performance of the business. Now, there's various different ways that you can measure and visualize the performance of a business. So there's 3 examples here. You've got traditional KPIs, so key performance indicators, and with that, you're basically displaying a number, a level, a percentage, something about the business. So you're showing that, and you might present that either as a static number or on a gauge as a percentage, and you might highlight where there are bounds. So for example, if you had an upper limit on the percentage of overheads as a percentage of revenue, for example, and you didn't want that to go above 50%, you could visualize that chart a bit differently if it does go above 50% to really highlight that there's a problem or an issue there. You've then got something like OKRs, so objectives and key results. So with that, you're setting a very high level open objective. So that objective might be to deliver excellent customer performance, or excellent customer view, excellent customer details there. And you might then set key results against that objective. So one of those might be that you want a rating from your customers of above 8 out of 10. So that would be a key result for that objective. It might be a certain star level. It might be a number of good customer reviews on an Amazon store, for example. But all of those key results would then build towards that objective of delivering excellent customer service. You've then got something like a balanced scorecard. So with a balanced scorecard, and I'll go a bit more into detail in a sec. But what you're doing there is you're looking at all areas of the business. So whereas many businesses you would tend to look at financial metrics, so you might look at revenue, gross profit, net profit, overheads, etc. Those financial metrics can overemphasize the short term, and you want to build on a business in the long term, take a much wider view of the business. So a little bit about that balanced scorecard, because it's an interesting one to dip into. So back in the early 90s, the Harvard Business School developed the balanced scorecard to address the overemphasis on financial metrics. So although we still have the financial perspective there, so how we appear to our shareholders, we also have these other perspectives. So the customer perspective, how we appear to our customers, the internal business perspective, so how what processes we must excel at to succeed in business, and the learning and growth perspective, so how we sustain our ability to change and improve. So all of those together can create this balanced scorecard and give you a much more balanced view of how the business is performing. So we decided on which KPIs would make sense for each of these perspectives and which data source they come from. There's many different data sources within the business. I'll drop into that in a sec. And it's important to work out what you need to measure, then look at where you can get that data from, rather than simply looking at a data source like Xero, for example, and trying to figure out what it can give you. You want to look at what you're looking to achieve and then look at where you can get that data from. We put emphasis on automating as much of this as possible. So any manual actions often mean that updates to reports are forgotten or other things get in the way. Data isn't as up to date as we'd like it to be, and then soon those reports become less and less valuable. So I'll look at how we then took that data to build a report that would give us a balanced view of the business. So it's good to look at where your data is. And if you're like a lot of businesses, your data will be everywhere. Most businesses will have something like a CRM system, an HR platform, a finance platform like QuickBooks or Xero. You might have a timesheeting system. You might have ordering systems. Lots of different platforms and systems around your business that all contain data. And some of those systems may integrate and share data between each other, and some of them may not. They might just be standalone systems that you're using, perhaps getting your employees to log into and input data. And then a lot of companies will use good old Excel to store data. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not doing it at the scale that it's going to cause issues. It's definitely not a database, but a lot of businesses will store data in Excel workbooks. So how on earth do you get all of that data and connect to it, yet alone automate the collection of it? So we use a tool called Power BI. So Power BI is a business analytics service and a tool set by Microsoft. And it allows you to connect to lots of different data sources. Many of them out of the box. You don't need to do anything particularly technical. You just need to tell it where the data is, and it will connect to it and start pulling that data in. So of course, being a Microsoft tool, it will connect to the Microsoft online services like Microsoft 365, as well as things like Microsoft Azure platform, the Dynamics platform for CRM and ERP. But and you can grab an Excel document from OneDrive, for example. If you're storing any Excel documents in OneDrive, either as a personal account or a company account, you can connect to that and start pulling data from it. It also will connect to a huge range of other services too. Microsoft has done some really good work with many of the popular online tools like Salesforce, Google Analytics, Zendesk, etc. It will connect to those out of the box. So you don't need to do a great deal with it. You can literally just give it your credentials, point it at the data, and it will start pulling that data in. It allows you to visualize your data. So you'll be able to create charts, gauges, cards, maps, etc. And you can publish those reports to the Power BI service, and you can share that with other stakeholders. So Power BI can refresh that data regularly, and you can ask to have a report delivered to your inbox every Monday, for example. So if there's a particular sales report you're looking for every Monday morning, it will send you a PDF on a Monday morning, so you don't have to go digging for it. It will be there ready for you. And you can get started for free. So Power BI Desktop is a free download. It is reasonably limited, but it allows you to get started on your own. If you want to start sharing reports with other stakeholders, doing anything a bit more complex, then obviously you have to start paying for a pro account. But a pro account is about $9.99 a month, so it's not massively expensive. And with some Office 365 subscriptions, you will get that included. So here's a nice example of a dashboard, and it's extremely interactive because the data has been linked together from various different data sources, and you might link that together by date, for example, or region. But we can click the date buttons at the top, and that will change the data according to the date range. We can also click on different regions, and it will then show you and highlight the sales trend for that particular region. You can also see the different types of visualizations on here quite clearly. So we've got bar and line charts, we've got bubble charts, donut charts. We've even got a map there. So there's a map of the United States, and we can link that data for that particular region and highlight particular states depending on their sales performance. So it's a real nice, easy thing to use. It's clearly displaying the data to any of the stakeholders who might not be particularly technical, but they can hopefully understand those figures and draw value from them. So getting started is incredibly easy. So you would download the Power BI desktop tool. You'd open that up and click Get Data. Once you click that, it's asking for what type of data you're connecting to. So Excel is a good starting point. You click on Excel. You would choose your Excel spreadsheet wherever that's stored. And once you've done that, you'll see on the right-hand side here, you've got a list of the fields that are available in that Excel workbook, and you can drag those fields onto the pane to start creating charts and reports. So you may drag gross sales across, and it will start visualizing that, and you drag date across, and that would then split those gross sales by date. So incredibly easy to get started. It can get incredibly complex very quickly, but as a starting point, it's really easy to do. So a quick look at the data sources that we use as a business, and as I said, some of these are out of the box. So we're using Xero, our accounting software. We're using that to pull out a trial balance, account categories, and invoice values. We did create a custom connector for this one. The custom connectors are not massively difficult to create, but they would require some development knowledge. But it will connect to Xero out of the box. There are a number of things that you can pull out just by connecting to it, pointing it at where your Xero subscription is, and entering some credentials. We're using Microsoft Forms, so for that we're sending out customer surveys to our customers. So they go out regularly, and we can then plot what the satisfaction rating is across our client base. We have employee surveys. We have workshop feedback in there as well, so we're pulling that data in. WordPress, we have a metric there where we're expecting a number of blog posts every month. So our staff contribute towards articles that are published on our blog, and so we're plotting how many blog posts are published. We have a specialist development tool called Azure DevOps. That's tracking how that development work within EG is taking place. How many features and epics have been completed, what our development velocity is. So that's a little bit more niche, but it proves that we can connect to these tools and we can plot various different areas of the business. We have Bamboo HR, which is our employee HR data, and within there we've got time off booked, so we can plot how much time off has been booked throughout the year, make sure that we're on track and everyone's not leaving all their time off until December. If I skip across to the right hand side, we've got things like Workflow Max, which is there for job management. So that's a job management tool that allows us to track the progress of any of our jobs or projects that are taking place. we can look at current margins for that project. We can look at staff timesheets, so staff will submit where they've spent their time, which projects they've spent their time on, and that all gets plotted within our reports and dashboards. We've got an employee engagement tool called Office Vibe, and that sends out surveys every week with a few questions to our staff, so they can then rate the company for things like alignment with vision and mission, their job satisfaction, their relationship with managers, colleagues, etc. You know, what they feel, how they feel we're doing with well-being, all of that sort of stuff. It collects all of those metrics, it builds a picture over time, and we can pull that data out and plot that. And then Dynamics 365. So this is our CRM tool. This is our customer relationship management tool, and that will collect data on any leads and opportunities that we're tracking, how they're developing, what's been closed and won, any upcoming opportunities, any marketing activities that take place as well. So emails that get sent, events that are being booked, any engagement with any of that. And then down at the bottom left, we've got Excel for anything else. So anything we needed to track, any static KPIs, any static targets or anything like that we can't put anywhere else, we can use Excel for that. Data that doesn't exist via an API, the number of training courses attended, for example, number of press articles that have been published. We can't get that data from anywhere else, so we're just inputting it into a spreadsheet, and that then gets pulled through into a report. There is a mention of Power Automate there. The reason we've got two sides to this list of data sources is that the data sources on the right there, Workflow Max, Office Vibe, Dynamics 365, some of that is point in time based, and we want a history of how those metrics have changed month by month. So we're just pulling that data out all the time and just storing the output from them into what we call a data lake. So that means we're just collecting a whole list of files that is output from those tools, so we can then go back and find out what the history is. So what does that produce? So in terms of balanced scorecard, we've got a dashboard in Power BI within the Power BI service, so we can see this dashboard within a web browser, or within the apps that are published that you can access on iOS or Android. So you can view all of this from various different means. We've got the four perspectives there on the left-hand side, so finance, customer, internal business, learning and growth. And this is an example of the learning and growth dashboard. So we've got operations alignment with vision and mission. So we're plotting that over time, how that changes over time. You can see there's a bit of a dip there at the beginning of the pandemic. That alignment sort of dropped off, and with that we needed to do some work then to make sure that people working from home still felt part of the organization, and we brought that metric back. So that's in particular is a really good example of how you can see this data, see how it changes over time, and put in place some actions to rectify the situation. As I said, we've got the WordPress blog posts, so you can see that changing month by month. And another metric we track there is the number of Microsoft certified professionals we have within the organization, and that's plotted there at the bottom left. There's also some data here for some KPIs that I've pulled out. Another good example. I've fictionalized all this data, so it's not real data, but top left, we've got pipeline value, so the number of opportunities that we're tracking within the sales function, so we can see how big that pipeline is month by month. We've got closed sales top right, so we can see how we're hitting our sales target, and we can see what those targets are, and as they grow cumulatively month by month, right the way through to year end. Bottom left, we've got EBITDA, so it's a financial metric. But we're plotting that bottom left. That would be pulled from zero from within our finance platform. And then bottom right, gross margin. So we can see how that gross margin changes month by month. We've got a target line set there. You might not be able to see that. It's a bit light, but 54%, there's a dashed line across the top. So we can then see how we're hitting that target month by month. So sort of a bit of a whistle-stop tour of how Power BI can be used, how you can use data within your organization, how you can pull data from various different sources, and you can pull that all together into one dashboard or a set of reports, how you can visualize that data in various different ways, and how you can automate all of that. So this KPI slide, for example, is that's a good example, because all of this has been automated. We don't touch any of that. That's all just pulled from either our CRM platform, which is tracking opportunities and leads, or from our finance platform, which is tracking financial metrics. It's tracking invoices, sales, revenue coming into the company, and it's generating metrics based on that. So because we don't have to touch it, there's no one who's responsible for updating it. The data is calculated on the fly, and we don't need we're not making mistakes. There's no room for human error there. It's all done automatically, and delivered to directors' inboxes. So with that, I think move on to any questions.
Excellent, thanks, Chris. Again, if anyone listening has got any questions, please use the Q&A. I was just going to ask Chris, I suppose from my perspective, I'd be interested. Obviously, there's loads of data in here, but what would you say if you're like a small organisation or just trying to sort of start doing this kind of thing? What would you say like the first steps someone should take should be?
First steps, I think, would be download the Power. Let me skip back through some slides here. Download the Power BI desktop tool. It's a free download, and start having a play to see what it can give you. So, as I said in this slide, it's really easy to get started. You can come in here, click Get Data, and there's a whole list of data sources. Explore what those data sources are and where you can get data from. So, right at the top there is Excel. It's a nice, easy starting point. You can just everyone knows how to use Excel. So you could, as a starting point, just pull data out or generate a report from any of your platforms into an Excel workbook and start exploring how you can visualize that data. And it's really easy to have a play. It's literally just a case of connecting to that Excel workbook, telling it where the Excel workbook is, and from this view here, you've got your fields down the right hand side. Start dragging them on the screen. Can you see my mouse pointer?
Yes.
Yeah. So financial metrics just here. Drag them onto the screen and start having a play with these visualizations. Change the report, change the chart types. Start seeing how you can make sense of your data. And then from there, start connecting to other data sources, and seeing how you can present that data as well. And it's a really intuitive tool to use, especially to get started with. Once you start getting a bit more complex and joining lots of things together, it can get a bit more complicated. But as a starting point, that's a really good start.
Excellent. And we just had a couple of other questions coming in, Chris, from Dawie, which is it possible to show real data from a different time zone? To show up real data from different time zone?
Yes. So, I mean, obviously you're going to need to know what the time zone is. So, as long as you've got that in sort of a universal date format, so that you know what the time difference is, if you need that to make sense. But you're going to need to know if you're GMT +1, etc. You're going to need to know what the difference is. But if it is literally just visualizing data from the US, for example, there's no reason why you can't just pull that onto the screen.
Excellent. And someone else has asked, does Power BI work with Google Sheets? So can you integrate it with that or not?
Yes, I believe it does that out of the box.
Excellent. That's handy. And then Carl was asking as well, does Power BI have a inbuilt prediction capability, or is it possible to link, if you had your own prediction software, is it possible to link that to it?
Yes, there is the ability to connect to Azure ML, which is machine learning, and use some of the AI capability built into that. So obviously you're starting to get a bit more complex at that point, but you can do that. There's also a really nice feature where you can ask it questions. So you can give it natural language. You can say, what were my sales in July? You can literally type that into a search box, and it will then start using its built-in AI capabilities to visualize that on the screen for you.
Excellent, awesome. And a question from Tom is there an embed function? So could you then pull this out and sort of host data on your own site or somewhere else, for instance?
Yes, there's exactly that. It is called Power BI Embedded. You can use that. You've got to license it in a slightly different way, because obviously you're not doing it on a per user basis. You're publishing it directly into a website. But yeah, it is possible.
Okay, and then someone else was just asking, is it, could you use it as a alternative to Google Data Studio? So does it have sort of like similar functions?
Yes, yeah,
it does to me. But...
yeah. It's basically the competition for it. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think that is, unless anyone has any final questions, I just want to chuck into the mix quickly. But otherwise, we'll sort of wrap it up there, I think. Thanks a lot for your time, Chris. It's very much
Yeah, no problem. No, thanks very much for having me.
And thanks, everyone for attending. If you've got any sort of additional questions, or please feel free to pop us an email, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. The slides and this recording should be shared with you later, so you can have a look at it and sort of look back on anything. And again, if you have any questions, please let us know. Once you leave the webinar, you'll be directed to a feedback form. So if you could take a couple of minutes to complete this, that'd be really appreciated. And keep an eye out on your emails for our next event launching soon. So that'd be great. And lastly, please do head over to LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, give us a follow, and keep up to date on all of the events. And thank you very much for your time, Chris. And thanks everyone for joining.
No problem. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.